They're going to be sharing how to cut through the noise, bring that first time energy to every single interaction, and just how to consistently show up and have that engaging presence. So Tara, I would love to hear from you first. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe include your Superwoman backstory on how you got where you are today.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. And even more so, I'm really excited to be alongside everybody who is here. But yes, my name is Tara. I am just a little bit north of Atlanta, Georgia, up in the burbs. For anybody who's familiar here, I'm OTP, so don't kill me. But my backstory, I come from a long, twisty, turny road to get here. And I have a background in everything from marketing. I was an editor and publishing, sports journalist, even a ministry director, all the way to where a lot of people first met me was when I was leading the SDR team at Gravy. And a year ago, gosh, it was a year ago, December, I went off on my own to start and found my business called Happy Words. And I get to work with a bunch of just incredible, incredible people, helping them bring their incredible words and wisdom to life, specifically on LinkedIn. So that's what I get to do. And I am just excited to be here.
So excited to have you, Tara. Such a cool background. And Marcus, I'll put it to you next. Would you introduce yourself to everyone here?
Of course. So first off, welcome everyone. So happy to have you on here, and you make me follow Tara. Well, actually, I don't know what's like better or worse, following Tara or Nick. So, anyways, I'm Marcus Chan, founder of Bentley Consulting Group, creator of Six Figure Sales Academy. So a little backstory. So I'm here in Portland, Oregon. So I saw Portland, Oregon earlier. So let's go out here in Portland, Oregon. I actually started in BB sales over 14 years ago, and I was actually one of the worst reps ever. I actually almost quit sales, almost got fired. It was really hard, full cycle, and trying to start sales, start in a B2B sales role in the last economic recession was pretty hard. Fortunately, I figured it out. Had some pretty cool success. And I've actually only worked for 2 major companies. Got promoted 10 times in 10 years, won lots of awards. That was cool. Ran a sales team of over 100 plus employees. That was cool too. And then I started actually a side hustle while doing all of this. And it exploded in growth and actually turned into a full-time hustle in September 2019. So been doing this now, my role now for about, just over 2 years now. Been really fortunate. It's been a lot of fun, in which now I help B2B sales professionals earn an additional $50,000 to $100,000 more every single year. So I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I'm excited to be here.
That's incredible. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you, Marcus. And Nick.
Can I just say one thing first? If I was an AE, I'm going to work with Marcus. I'm telling you that. I've had multiple conversations with this man. I'm just seeing. I know someone talking about things.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you, brother.
Listen, facts are facts. Nick Capozzi, originally from Montreal, then Toronto, Canada. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, because there's no snow. My background's a little bit different. I was actually a broadcaster, and one day at a party, someone said, "Can you do that on a stage?" I stepped onto a cruise ship in Miami, and I spent like the better part of 2 decades actually in the cruise business, 10 of which I lived on cruise ships. And what we did was pitch from a stage. So I have like over 10,000 hours of pitching to like 500 people at a time. And it was all duty free. And you think liquor, tobacco, Toblerone bars, it was actually Swiss watches and jewelry. So it was a really unique business. And I became a trainer. And then I wound up running the duty free sales for 8 cruise lines, Disney, Norwegian, a few others. So that's what I did. And then like a year and a half ago, I'm like, hey, cruise lines, not a thing anymore, at least for the moment. I started posting videos on LinkedIn, and here I am talking about presentation skills. So that's what I do.
Amazing.
I love that. I'm so excited to learn from all 3 of you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all over 75 of you who are here already, who are going to listen in. And, this is all about showing up, being engaging. So we don't just want you to be passive listeners. We want your thoughts, your ideas, your questions all throughout the session. So take advantage of being here live. You're going to want to keep your chat open throughout. If you've got a question, go ahead and open up your Q&A, and you can drop any questions you have in the Q&A as we go. So I would love to kick off the chat. Go ahead and share one word that describes how you feel when it's the top of the day, you're about to pick up the phone and make your first cold call, or maybe it's right before you're about to get on that meeting. Share one word in the chat that describes that feeling.
And we're in the nest. We're in the trust tree here. So be real. Be real here. All right. See, there we go.
I love it.
I like that, Adam.
I like that. Excited. I like that.
Ooh.
Nervous focus. I like it. Real electric.
Ooh, electric. Colin.
These are some
Colin
good
needs to be on this panel.
These are some. Someone's got the source out. These are some good words here.
I know.
Hamstrung. All right, there you go. The source.
I love this.
Anticipatory. That's awesome. I like that.
So seeing some of these that are coming through, some of, let's say, like this nervous energy, or some have said anxious, but then we've got like some really exciting, energized, prepared. For some of these, like the nervousness and stuff, how do you combat some of those feelings walking into this, or even like how do you channel that nervous energy as you think about showing up and bringing yourself into a meeting? Let's start with you, Nick.
So one thing I always try and do is get a dopamine drip going first thing in the morning, because every time you achieve something, right, you're just going to want to go to the next task. And that's something for me when I worked on cruise ships. I was almost institutionalized. I had to be a certain place at a certain time. Now I have a lot more flexibility. So the one thing I always try and do, and it's going to seem like a small thing, but if you're not in the habit of making your bed, when you make your bed, it takes you 35, 40 seconds. I don't know how many pillows you have, but assuming you don't have a lot of pillows, we're talking seconds, but you get that first hit of dopamine. And then what's the next thing you can do? Because what happens to your brain is if the first thing you do is get on your phone, that becomes the dopamine that you start chasing for the day. So if I'm going to get up and I want to be in the right headspace, I'm making my bed. Anything that takes less than 60 seconds to do, especially in the morning, putting the dishes in the dishwasher, I make sure I do that. And that really is a habit that I got into that has helped me kind of hit the ground running the minute I'm doing my first dial or first meeting or whatever it is.
I love that. The small accomplishments that you can get right away under 60 seconds. Tara, we're going to add something there?
No, I love that. I mean, it definitely is just making those little deposits that just, it changes your mindset and changes your energy. And for me, I always try to go back to any time that I'm going to do something for the first time, always remembering, and this is something that's really big for me, is that anytime I'm engaging someone, it might be my 10th time, it might be my first time of the day, or it might be after I've taken a break from another activity and I'm coming back to it. And so all of those nerves, all those thoughts, all of those feelings rise up. But for me, it's remembering anybody who's on the other side of that meeting, of that call, of that video, of that email. It is literally the first time they're hearing from me. So I need to be sure that I've always got that in mind. So no matter what I'm doing, that energizes me of like, hey, to me, this might be monotonous. To me, this might be, just something else I'm doing as a part of my day. And I'm going through a task or I'm going through a list. But knowing that, hey, the person on the other side is going to receive the first me that they've gotten today. So I better be bringing my first time energy, my first time passion, my first time excitement, because they don't care what the rest of my day looks like. They don't care if they're on a list of 100, they better not feel that way. So those are the kind of reminders that I give myself, that I need to show up exactly as I would want somebody to show up for me, knowing that it's my first time. Because we've all been on the other side of somebody that's like, okay, this is your 10th one in a row, where you're just kind of repeating things and going. And at the same time, I'm like, that doesn't make me feel special. So just getting in the mindset. And then I do little tricks like listening to music, really thinking about the who, really thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish instead of just trying to going through the things. And it just starts to feel robotic and rote. So remembering that it might be your 10th time, but it's their first time always.
I love that. Doesn't matter if it's back to back, they're getting you for the first time. That's awesome. And I love how you brought up establishing that mindset right away. And Marcus, I want to hear from you, but to kind of shift on how you establish that mindset and bring that enthusiasm to every interaction. Like, what are some of those things that you do to get on the right foot even before you jump into that? Marcus, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this conversation because the truth is, once we start making that call, we can't always anticipate what that person's going to say, how they can react, what's happening in their life. All we can control is what we personally do. And the truth is, if you want to be a peak performer, it's about how you manage your energy. So when I think about how to show up properly, there's really 4 core buckets that you have to fill every single day. And ideally, if you start filling before you start your day, then your chances of success are going to go up. And the 4 buckets are: number 1, you're emotional, and 2, spiritual, mental, and then physical. And if you can fill those buckets first, and everyone's got different variation of what they're going to do for each bucket, then you're more likely to show up really, really well. So for example, I love exactly what Nick said, where he doesn't look at his phone. So when I wake up, I don't look at my phone. Right? I turn the alarm off. I don't look at my phone. I don't read emails. I don't read the news. I don't look at notifications. I go and I immediately change, and I go work out first. So I'll do a 30-minute workout to the physical part. So I feel really good. And I'm going to listen to something that's going to feed my mind. So I don't listen to the news. I actually don't even listen to music. I listen to something that's going to inspire me and make me better, that feeds my growth and starts stimulating the brain nerves early on before I do anything else, right? And then I have some other crazy things I do, affirmations, etc. I'm kind of crazy and write my goals out, whatever. But I'm filling my mental, emotional, spiritual buckets first before I make my first call. So once I'm ready to make that first call, I'm already feeling really good. I'm energized. Right. And then, of course, you add some things that are really going to help, like, being well prepared with a really, really good list, right? Make sure it's the right ICP, making sure your frameworks inside and out. But on top of that, I find that one of the best ways to just start making calls is make calls before you start calling. And what I mean by that is you look at your list, your first 10 calls you're going to make, role play them out loud. Like, go through the absolute worst possible scenario in every single call, all the objections, just do it out loud. Get your brain mapping through exactly what it's going to sound like. So that way, once you're on the call, and they don't give you 9 objections, they only give you 2. You're like, that's it. And you feel good now. So now it's easy to run through calls and to stay in your game, because you're like, I'm expecting the worst possible, but I'm mentally ready to go, and I've been preparing all morning for this. So those are some things I would recommend to really start showing up and controlling your energy so you can have the highest possible output when you're actually making calls.
Okay, I need to interject here because that's brilliant. And if you take anything away from that, it's maybe that last 60 seconds, because first of all, you see how polished and prepared and like wired Marcus. This is why I love this guy. But when you see those, like, whether it's on social media or LinkedIn, it's like, hey, you should read 10 pages a day. You should drink this much water. He's doing it, but you see the result, right? Like, you're seeing it live here. The only thing I'm going to argue, man, if you're not listening to like some music while you work, I can't like lift a weight without 3 6 Mafia, or Yo Gotti in the background. So that's the only but otherwise that's that.
Whatever gets you. The point is this though, right? So when people hear my routine, they're like, dang, you have an hour and a half more routine. No. When I first started, it was like 30 seconds. So what you have to do is find something that fits you. What's going to fit you the more? What fills your bucket? Is it reading the Bible for a minute? 10 minutes? Is it praying? Is it going for a walk? Is it spending some time with your family? You find out what's going to fill your bucket so you feel good. Because when you feel good, you sound good. And when you sound good, your chances of booking that meeting go up instantly.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I love the idea of like obviously filling your bucket, because now you're right. You're coming into the day, you're coming into the conversations, and you're ready to give, and you're ready to be overflown. And so many times people think, oh my gosh, it's an SDR. It's you're coming to get something from me. But when you're approaching that conversation as like, I am full and I'm ready to give. I'm ready to give you my time, my energy, my attention, and actually make this about you, not what I'm trying to take from you and what I'm trying to pull. But that's the exact mindset of coming in completely full already. And then also not hanging your worth on their rejection, on their outcome, because you are so full, you're so focused, and you're so just present and steady. And everybody loves that because you don't come across desperate. You don't come across needing anything. You come across as being someone who's actually giving them time, attention, and curiosity. So that is awesome. I love it.
Actually, I got a question about that, if I may. Sorry, Sam. I'm full of questions because I'm loving like who I'm chatting with. This is great. So, you mentioned rejection and outcome, Tara, specifically. And I want to shout out my buddy, Mark Lewis Jones, who I've known for like 20 years from cruise ships. Mark and I go way back. He's actually here right now. I saw that. So what we had on cruise ships was like our quota was every week, because every week we had a new group of passengers. So if you had a bad week, everything was kind of based on that week. So I'll get in, the rhythm now of making calls and stuff. And sometimes if I take a left hook to the jaw, you know what? I do have to recalibrate, but it's not my best skill. So Tara, how do you specifically handle that?
Ooh. So this is where I honestly have to get out, and I have to get out of my brain. And I am such a verbal processor. So anytime that I am just feeling like, oh my God, I got rejected, I literally have to talk it out. I have to write it out. I have to just start doing something else. Like, I'm not one of those people that, I'm emotional, which is part of my, it's just part of my MO. But I don't like necessarily just, okay, that's it, and be detached, completely, because I can't detach very well. So that's when I have to go back, honestly, to one thing that you talked about is potentially switch an activity to something I can succeed in. So for me, that might be, okay, let me go revisit that email that, I had a great response of, or maybe I need to read something, or maybe I had to do something. I'm a lot better at this now than I used to be. But when I first started as an SDR, when I first started getting rejected, it's so easy to say, you know what, they're rejecting me as a person. They're rejecting the words that I use and the choices. But now it's so much when I go into those as in, hey, I'm trying to give you something. You don't need what I'm trying to give you or what I'm trying to help you with. That's okay. That has nothing to do with who I am or how I present it. But the other thing is that I think all of us know when we didn't give it our all. And so this is kind of like the mom in me. I'm a parent to some athletic children, boys. And so getting in their mindset and seeing how honestly they bounce back of like, you know what, my team lost. That sucks, but I did the best I could. And so I actually feel really good about it. So if I know, hey, I did everything that I could in that moment, they rejected for some other reason. Those are those kind of verbal cues that I walk myself through. Like, be honest, was that my best presentation? Was that my best video? Was that my best email? Was that my best try? Was that my best proposal? Was that my best conversation? And be honest about it. If it was, great. That's all I can do. If it wasn't, then I need to do some reevaluating and just get back to the drawing board.
So I want to add two things. I want to add to this as well because, so short story. Sorry, Sam, we're completely taking control of this webinar now. So, anyways,
go ahead.
So when I first got started in sales, I mentioned I was absolute worst. Like I remember getting on the phones. I would sit with my headset on and make 80 to 100 calls back to back and get my face punched in and book 0 appointments. And I'm second guessing myself. I'm wondering why I go with sales. I'm like, why didn't I listen to my parents? Why didn't I become an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer or engineer? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with everyone else? Oh my God, what am I doing? And I realized that wasn't effective. And I applied two really simple things that really transition my game and help me reframe how I thought. Because what ends up happening is your brain will fool you. You will fool yourself into thinking you suck when you don't suck at all. You just don't have the facts, right? And once you have the facts, you can change the stats. So one of the things I started doing, I took it back from when I used to be a competitive swimmer. One thing I did was, when I was a competitive swimmer in practice, we didn't swim back and forth for 2 hours at a time. We had starts and stops. And I'll look forward to the stops because we could recalibrate. So I apply that to cold calling. So instead of sitting for 8 hours, I would say, I'm gonna do a 30-minute block. I'm gonna hit it hard. So even when absolutely garbage, I knew I had a 10 or 15-minute break at the end of the 30. If I could just make it to that stop point, then I could recalibrate and then take a break and not think about it. Right. So that was the first thing I did. I started having starts and stops and blocks. And it sounds so simple, but it was highly effective. Right. I literally had a timer for myself as well. So once the timer stopped, I'm wrapping the call, I'm excited. Right. I take a walk, I move around. That was the first thing. The second thing I did to retrain and brainwash myself into making sure I look at things properly was I had a win and opportunity journal. Really simple. All it really was like literally a notebook paper. I drew a line down the middle, vertical line down the middle, win and opportunity. And I'll reflect back to that 30-minute block, right? And I'll say, what's one win I can recognize? Did I follow my frameworks? Did I keep going? Did I try get at least a couple different no's? Did I book some meetings? Whatever it was, I put at least one win down. And then next to it, what's one opportunity? What's one thing I can do better? Not 10 things, not 5 things, not 20. What's one thing I can work on to take into my next block of 30 minutes? Maybe I could, control my frame more. Maybe I could stand up and sound more confident. Maybe I can control my pace, my inflection, my tonality, whatever it was. One thing, I read it down. And when I start the next 30-minute block, I'll do my best to apply it for a 30-minute block. So I would reframe my mind different ways, because ultimately, sales really, the truth is the hardest territory to manage is right between your ears. If you know how to manage what's between your ears, then you can improve your results drastically. But it's doing these small, simple tactics that actually will change the game for you. So that's what I would do, Nick.
Okay, I'm just sorry, hold on. Hey, I quit. Yeah, I'm gonna become an AE and I'm gonna go work with Marcus. Okay,
do it.
I work for myself. Sorry. Yeah. But you know what? The hardest sales territory is between your ears. Yes. Is that exactly how you said it, Marcus?
That's exactly it. The hardest territory to manage is right between your ears.
That just became a TikTok video, bro.
Dude, you manage the territory, your life becomes insane. I promise you.
Wow. That's
self-leadership. Lead yourself first, and everything else, I mean, it falls into place. And it's wild, because we always think about, I'm going to lead someone else, I'm going to do this, that's going to be external, but Marcus nailed it, that it truly is the self. And that's what I feel like we keep coming back to before anything else. Like, we're not even digging into really tactics yet, but this is all the framework. This is everything, because when you talk about your presence, your energy, your passion, and how you show up for others, it starts with showing up for yourself. And we've kind of done that naturally, which is really cool.
One of the greatest things that we can really do is become massively self-aware. Like, like when you become massively self-aware, it becomes really scary. In fact, it may be like pleasantly horrifying. It's like when you first listen to your own cold call, you're like, oh my God, I sound like what? Like who? That sounds terrible. But now you have truth. And when you have truth and when you have clarity, then you can shift the truth to what you want to do. But if you can't own the truth, then you can't own the future.
I feel like
Where's the book, Marcus? Where's the book?
Yeah, when's this coming out?
It'll be launching in 2023, so be ready for that. So you can pre-order below. Drop a link in the comments right now.
This is amazing.
You need an editor.
Yeah. I got you.
I'll tell you. Sorry, Sam. One thing. I'll just put a cherry on top of this. I think too, when you talk about engagement and energy, and Tara and I got to meet in person at the Hard No Tour for Thursday Night Sales last October in Vegas. And everyone knew everyone there and everyone was drawn to everyone, but Tara was like a magnet, right? And when you exude that, and it's natural for her, but it's also, I really believe confidence and charisma are acquired skills. And you just see it, and seeing it in real life. And I would imagine it's the same thing. Marcus, you and I haven't had the pleasure yet, but I would be afraid to walk down the street in Portland, Oregon with you. Because we'd be like fighting people off, right? Because you would just pull them in.
That's true. It probably would happen. It probably would happen. You're right.
So I want to ask y'all if this doesn't come naturally to you, and I know we're talking about these things that help you prepare, even if this doesn't come naturally, but I would love for you to expound on that a little bit more, because I know on the prep call, we talked about, whether you're an introvert or you're not like a natural extrovert, how do you carry that energy and bring those good vibes to an outbound call if this doesn't come normally, and how do you kind of work with what your natural tendencies are?
Do you want me to jump in and take this one?
Sounds awesome. So
let me jump in on this, because this may shock some of you all, because you see what you see right now, but I'm actually an ambivert, meaning I fall right in the middle, right? Meaning I get energy from other people, but I really need my alone time. I'm actually, a lot of people don't realize as well, is I actually grew up very introverted. So I grew up very insecure, very introverted. English is actually my second language. I didn't start speaking until I was 4 years old. When I started speaking, actually had a speech impediment. So I really struggled having conversations with regular human beings. I literally remember being 6, 7 years old, going to speech therapy classes. Like, it was so embarrassing for me. Like, they'd take me, put me in a room with other special kids to learn how to talk English. And I would be so embarrassed. And so growing up like this, I really didn't speak up much. I was very introvert, very scared to talk. And I've had to learn how to turn it on. I've had to learn how to be a regular human being, have regular human social interaction conversations with strangers. I never thought I'd be in sales. I never thought I would be, on a webinar with you all having this great time. I never thought I'd do any of these things. But there were things when you break it down, it goes back to number one, the first thing, which is awareness. When I realized that wasn't my instinct, it wasn't my go-to, I knew I had to work on it. And it wasn't like I woke up one day, I'm like, oh, I need to get better at this. It was literally, I told Tara and Nick yesterday, it really was when I was a little bit younger, like 11 or 12. And I really got into, this sounds super nerdy, but I really got into street magic. Okay. So like David Blaine is really popular, levitating, doing street magic. And I want, like, in my mind, he's like my idol. Like, I wanted to be able to walk up to a group of strangers and just blow their minds with legerdemain. Like that's what I wanted to do. So I literally would go and I'd get these books and I would start practicing at home. And it wasn't like suddenly overnight I had crowds of hundreds of people. It was like I had to kind of start small. I kind of lean outside my comfort zone to become more comfortable talking to strangers and be able to engage them. And if you watch magic, a lot of the times it's really about be able to tell a story and bring someone along on a journey and capture their attention. So I start with some friends, like in my comfort zone, practicing, right? But before that, no joke, I literally, to make sure I was really good when I was for my friends, I would practice literally hundreds and hundreds, not thousands of times, the same trick over and over and over. In front of the mirror, I would record it with my dad's JVC camera over and over and over, that repetition. And then I'll do it for my friends. And then over time, as I got more comfortable, I started building crowds of people. It got to the point where literally I had dozens of kids surrounding me, this introverted kid showing them magic. And over time, the more I practiced, the better I got. So I share that with you because, if you struggle, if you're naturally more introverted, and that's okay. If you naturally are an ambivert, that's okay. If you struggle to make conversations with other people, that's okay. Just be fully aware of it and take incremental steps to get a little bit better. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And what you want to look for and understand are frameworks. When you have frameworks to follow, it gets a little bit easier. So to get really tactical here, let's just say on a discovery call, a lot of times people struggle saying, what question should I ask next? I'm not sure. I want to have like a list of questions, but now it's an interrogation. They don't like you. So you want to incorporate frameworks like a 3-line framework, which is really simple, which is tell me more. They tell you something, whatever they say, great, tell me more. That's a framework. You can rinse and repeat that, right? So you find your own way with frameworks that actually will help you be the best version of you. And ultimately, when you are authentic and real in the conversation, they're going to like you more, whether you are an introvert, ambivert, extrovert, it does not matter.
Love that. It's funny too. I'm an omnivert. Like I'm either on or off. And just to kind of the original question, Sam, the way that I approach it is I try and do the tasks I have to do that day, depending on if I can rearrange them on my mood. So if I have just, carved out 2 hours to do some outbound for myself, maybe I'm going to move that. If I'm not feeling, maybe I'm going to do something a little bit more introverted and just kind of recharge my batteries. So having some fluidity for me has been really helpful. And I think what was interesting is, Marcus, you and I were having that conversation. Everyone assumes like I'm an extrovert. Everyone assumes you're an extrovert, but really, also there's a lot of battery charging that needs to happen. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, and it kind of ties into one of the questions that Brandon mentioned here about, do you put more value in talk track, pain points, or tone, voice, and energy? And, and this goes to, I think, if you're an introvert or this doesn't come naturally to you, or you don't feel you are carried, everyone has some charisma in them. It's just how you develop that skill. And one of the things, when we were on cruise ships, we were selling like high-end jewelry brands like Cartier and Chopard. How do I teach like a 6'3", 250-pound hockey player from Canada how to like present that? And what I used to get these guys to do, right? Because now we're not talking about it's a beautiful red ruby. It's a luscious raspberry red, right? How do you do that? And what we would do is we would put them in front of a mirror. I would put them in front of a mirror. So the best advice I can give you, so 2 things. One, you want to record your conversations in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's with a phone and you're not, you want to be able to look back. I never rely on anyone to watch my own tape. I never rely on training from people above me. I want to make sure that I'm watching my own tape. And it's very uncomfortable the first 2-3 times, but then it gets a lot easier. So talk about something you know. So Marcus, you could talk about magic, for example. Get in front of a mirror and talk for 15 minutes about that. And, wear something you're comfortable with. Put some makeup on, however you're going to feel best in that light. And then watch your facial features, watch how you move, because all these things are things that we associate with charisma and extroverted people, but all it is awareness, right? So if you put that time in and you record yourself and you watch yourself and you're aware of what you're doing, to me, that's one of the first things I always mention to people. So.
I love this. It's all about, I'm hearing, and awareness, being really in tune with yourself, creating these frameworks, and then like practicing. This is awesome. Tara, do you have anything to add in terms of when this isn't natural for you?
So I am an extrovert through and through. There is very little of me that is not extroverted, but I think like everybody, I need time to recharge. I love being alone. I love getting stuff done. But that's not as much my extroversion as is like my achiever, like get stuff done mentality. And I can't do that if people are around because I just want to talk to them. But that said, I think like everybody, I think an extrovert or people who like me, we've got a different set of problems. And that can be so many things, from just getting overexcited to, happy ears to all kinds of things that just lend itself to kind of going overboard and overbearing instead of sticking to a process, instead of realizing, hey, we're here to actually achieve something, not just make friends. So I think when it comes to that, reminding myself of, I do want to build rapport. I do want to have charisma, but I also know I need to know when to dial it back. I need to know when to have a slower tone, to not overexcite people that I'm talking to, or get too much ahead of the game. So it's interesting how a lot of times you'll have certain challenges if this is something you've got to manufacture, but then there are also going to be people who naturally have it, who need to have that awareness, like Marcus and Nick were saying, to tone it down some, to bring it back, to remember to ask the questions, to slow things down, and to take pause. So awareness is key.
Just to add to that as well, who you're speaking to really matters too. So depending on the personality type of your prospect, maybe they're more amiable, maybe they're more of a director style, maybe they're very analytical. Finding a way to balance is so key. Like, because the words you use, how you use it, the pace you speak. Like, I get very excited. I start talking really fast. For someone who's really analytical, they might be like, hold on a second. Like, I just slow down. So I personally, when I know that, I can work on it. But when I don't know that, then it hurts me. So that's why, again, awareness is one of the most powerful things you can do. And the best way to get awareness is recordings. Listen to the recordings.
Record yourself. I noticed that Niraj Kapoor is here. I'm going to drop his LinkedIn. If you don't know him, you need to follow him, especially for what we're talking about today. Because he's one of the most authentic and genuine human beings I've ever come across, like truly. So he's an absolute must follow if anything we're talking about today is interesting to you. So
I love that. Thank you, Nick. And I want to pose a question as well to the audience. As you're hearing these tactics for, establishing a positive mindset, how to bring energy to the first, as if it's your first interaction, even if it's not, and how to do this, even if it doesn't come naturally. What is one thing that you can do or you're going to do to bring more enthusiasm to your interactions? Like, or maybe it's something you've tried and it works well and you're going to continue to do it, but we'd love to hear some of your ideas in the chat. And so I would also love to shift to building rapport and sort of that pre-sale. So how do you make people feel like they know you before you even interact with them? What are some things that you can do to prepare? Tara, I'll start with you. What are some of those things that you do before you even get on the call to show someone that you know them?
So I think a lot of us are probably, if not all of us, are here because of one place called LinkedIn. So that to me is going to be one of the most obvious places. And this is how I help people, really, is understanding that your social journey is so important here. But that does not mean that, hey, I've got to start posting 5 times a day. In fact, don't. But it doesn't mean that you've got to all of a sudden, try to become something that you're not. But it does mean that the more you converse with people, the more you take time out of your day to start engaging, to start interacting, to start commenting. It is the golden rule of human to human contact and communication and connection. And that is when you show an interest in someone, they're going to show an interest in you, And so it may not be, of course, like immediately, but over time, if you're consistent with people you actually want to build relationships with, or people that you're really interested in working with. We love to use the word prospect, of course, but even if you remove that mindset and say, okay, this isn't a prospect, this is, John from XYZ company, and he's got some really interesting thoughts about this. In fact, regardless of if we ever work together, if we ever have, any kind of conversation, that would end up in my favor. I'm just going to keep giving. I'm going to give him my time. I'm going to give him attention. And those kind of things, it just starts naturally creating reciprocity. And so specifically in the world that I'm in, that's what I work with is like, hey, using your words and using your communication, it is meant to build connection. It is not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to feel pitch-like. It is meant to be authentic people talking to other people in a way that makes sense, So I am here for the conversation. And so whenever I get on a call with someone who's interested in working with me or I'm interested in working with them, 9 out of 10 times, I already feel like I know them and they already feel like they know me, not because we've had hours long conversation, but because we have shown up in comments and conversations. We've had little tiny bits of just, almost surface level things that start to get bigger, start to get deeper as we start to show just interest in each other. Like it doesn't have to be this big blown out strategy of just showing up and starting to give your thoughts, your genuine opinions, your genuine words to other people, and then creating connection there. And so when it comes time to have an actual conversation about things that you're mutually interested, hopefully, you've already gone so much far down the road that it removes a lot of the stress, a lot of the anxiety, because now it's like, hey, I'm just talking to Joe, or I'm just talking to Nick, I'm just talking to Marcus. It doesn't feel like this big, heavy, XYZ title at XYZ company. It feels like I'm talking human to human. So that's how I like to do it.
Amen.
I want to add to as well, because when you think about this, especially if it's a completely cold outbound prospect that you cold call, you write an email, you book a meeting with them. The way my mindset is I have to earn their trust, right? Mm-hmm. So if we assume and expect that they have zero trust in us, like imagine there's a bank and there's zero trust in the bank, you can't do a withdrawal. Right? Like this is not going to happen. So there's no money in there, right? So you have to deposit trust over and over and over. And the more pieces of trust you put inside there, the more it's going to build up. And it ties into exactly what Tara mentioned. So from the emails you write, from the words you say on the phone, to the comments you write on LinkedIn, to the videos you do to them, whatever you create, it represents you. It's an extension of you. And what you want to think about is, each piece of outreach you do, you put it out there, is it helping gain trust or lose trust? Does it actually represent you? So for example, if you are given your new SDR or new AE and you're given a sequence of templates, are you just taking that and say, cool, this has been working, let me just hit play, let's go? Or are you taking it and making sure each touch point really fits who you are? So when you have that outreach, the trust is building, because each time they see it and they see it over and over, it makes them trust you more and more and more, because now you're aligned. So for example, here, like we have a pretty high show up rate for our business, about 90% plus show up rate for cold process to meeting, because everything we do leading up to that point is designed to increase trust. From even the video we send them to confirm their meeting, everything. So when they see the alignment across the board, they trust you more. And then when you get in the call and everything's still aligned, now you can have a real conversation. So just think about how much trust can I add and how can I use every single touch point, from social selling, email, cold outreach, text, whatever methods you use, it's still an extension of building trust.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I want to add on to what both of you said. So first, Tara, when you were talking about LinkedIn and content creation, one of the things that people always kind of ping me about is, hey, Nick, like I want to start creating content. How do I do that? Here's the two key things. Just remember these two things. Well, three things. You can create content or you can curate content. Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second. But you only need to be one rung higher on the ladder than someone else to bring value. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. You just need to be ahead of one person. Second thing is, this is the easiest way to create content. You can talk, there's something you know about, right? I love to cook. I can talk about food and cooking for hours. Tara, I bet you if I asked you to talk about the Florida Gators for 30 minutes, you could do that, right?
Yeah.
Of course. So here's what you do. Open up a Word document, click dictate, and talk for 30 minutes about what you know. Whatever it is, cooking, sales, whatever. Go through that, print it off with a highlighter. You're going to have 20 to 40 distinct thoughts, of which you're going to get 2 or 3 spin-offs of all those. And you have 3 or 4 months of content from talking into a dictated Word document for 30 minutes. Holding back on doing content is just an imposter syndrome for most people that I talk to. So those are the best piece of advice I can give. In terms of where Marcus was going and building trust and drops in the bucket, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust, right? We've always heard that, but people like people who like them. And one thing I realized when I was on cruise ships, right? If there's like 12 revenue departments, no one's thinking duty free on day one, right? What they're thinking, I want to go to the spa, I want to go to Zito, right? So me and my team had to get in front of so many people as quickly as possible. And I realized how important that B2C rapport building was. And then how do I bring that now that I'm in this B2B world, right? And one of the things I realized was, before any conversation, I budget 90 seconds to go into someone's LinkedIn and I'm looking for nuggets of gold. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes we gloss over that. But what I'm looking for is accidental coincidences or accidental commonalities. So for example, here's a great example. A lot of people right now are doing these 3-week courses at Kellogg or whatever for whatever kind of, but they'll tag that. They thought it was important enough to put it on their professional LinkedIn account. So, hey, Marcus, I noticed that you took that Kellogg contract negotiation course. That's really interesting. What was the key takeaway? What was the best thing you learned, right? Or finding people in common connections. We talked about this story yesterday, but one of my favorite people in the world that I met, the first time I met them, I was like, hey, I noticed you're connected to so-and-so, which was my brother-in-law. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're related to this guy? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, wow. And what they did was, in that first conversation, superimpose all the good things about my brother-in-law onto me. He's a way better guy than me. Well, it worked out for me. Another time I had a guy who would put, I'm an accredited youth hockey coach. Well, I had an excuse now to talk about, I brought up a hockey thing, right? And the 25 minutes of the 30-minute conversation, we talked about the Hartford Whalers. That's what he wants to talk about. And the 5 minutes was, what are next steps, Nick? So if you get into that habit and start to look for things, then don't make assumptions. Now, don't say, oh, hey, Tara, I saw you went to the University of Florida. My third cousin, who I don't really know, went there too. Right on. Obviously, that's not what you want. But if you can bring up something that gets them to be like, oh, I like hockey too, or whatever it is, right? Another great way to do that, you know what? I'll also, if I don't have any ammunition, and I know Marcus is in Portland, I'll Google Portland and news, right? And oh my gosh, you had a big snowstorm yesterday. You guys don't get that very often, right? Did you go out and make snow angels in the snow? So finding those talking points, and that, what I always tell people is, don't force them, right? Mm-hmm. Don't force them. But when they open up a little sliver and you can actually use one of those, it changes the entire dynamic of the conversation. Last one too, because I really feel this is a really actionable piece of advice off of what Marcus was saying in the building trust. I have so many Google News alerts for so many different subjects, depending on who I'm trying to sell to, right? So if something comes up that's really interesting about, writing and social media writing, I'll be, as that alert comes in, there's like 10 people I'm going to send that to, and one of them is going to be Tara. Right? Because what am I doing? It's I'm just following up on the contract, right? Hey, Tara, hey, this is it. I thought you might find this interesting. No follow-up, no nothing, just here. Game changer.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And so, right, I can't even add anything. None of us can. Accidental coincidences. If y'all didn't write those down, accidental coincidences, that right there is absolutely incredible tips. So I know, like I said, I'm sitting here learning right alongside everybody else from these guys.
And I'll tell you why I had to do it, because I came from cruise. I didn't know, this was all new to me. I put a video by fluke on LinkedIn, and now I'm asking people for favors. Marcus, can you teach me something about this industry? Right? Sam, can you teach me something about this industry? So I'm knocking on everyone's door. Hey, can you do me a favor? Right? I'm not trying to pick your brain. Hey, can I pick your brain about something? No. But hey, Marcus, you know what? I just took this new role. Get really descriptive. You can ask someone something. I just took this new role and this. And, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and they said this about you. Could we have a quick maybe conversation about that and see where that goes? Rapport building is everything. You build rapport quickly. People buy from people they like. People like people who like them.
I love it. And I know like we're getting close to the end of our time. So I want to, if anyone has any questions on any of the things that have been said so far, I'm just pausing for a moment to please share those, and we'll answer them before, because this has been absolutely incredible. We do have one question that I want to pose to y'all from Anthony. From personal rapport standpoint, how do you transition to your objective of contacting the person?
How do we contact? So can we paint a picture here, Sam?
I think I might be tracking. So you're building rapport, you're having a conversation, doing great. And it's like, so the reason I'm calling is, that's what I think he's trying to say is, how do you transition? I could totally be wrong. Anthony, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, you've had a great rapport. Now, how do you get to, all right, this is the meat and potatoes of the conversation. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
So I think really simply, you can just address it. Hey, obviously you're super busy, Tara. So let me get right to it. That's it. And just jump right into it. It's a little that simple, right? If it's a cold call, the truth is you're not going to rapport build for like 30 minutes. They're busy, right? Like if they can rapport build for 30 minutes, you're probably calling the wrong person, just so you know. All right. So if it's a discovery call, that's where it's so easy to kind of fall into that. It's that trap of that rapport. Suddenly, it's, you talk about things that are not going to really move the deal forward or progress the opportunity. And there's a balancing that you do have to read the prospect. There's no hard and fast rule, because if they're a personality type that wants to talk for 25 minutes about them and everything else, you got to honor that a little bit, right? Because that's their love language. So whatever their love language is, you got to go with that. But if you're reading them, you're reading their body language, you're reading them, you see they're kind of fidgety on video, you can kind of tell they're just like, they're ready to get rolling, then you want to read that and stop the conversation, or not stop, transition the conversation to say, hey, so obviously I didn't come here to talk about how, you love speedos, Marcus. So the reason we're sitting down today is because of this. Boom. And you go right into it, right? If you can add levity, it's always funnier, right? So I think it's not really a complex thing. The most important thing is, how can you read the situation and transition accordingly based off the prospect?
And I think it's just real quick about having the confidence to do it, right? I think that's where a lot of people, they're afraid to pull the trigger. Sorry, Tara, you're going to talk.
No, I was just agreeing that confidence. That's like what caught me too. Is that that's perfectly said. That you've got to get to the meat and potatoes. You got to get to the reason. But they also know that, and so I think just calling it out, as Margaret said too. You didn't just call to randomly talk to a person, or you're not having a meeting. Like, everybody knows why you're there. So you're right. I think it's the confidence to say, okay, I'm here, saying what I need to say in a way that makes sense. But to Marcus's point too, making sure, like, it is so crucial, because you could be having the best rapport building. You're clicking, you guys know each other. And then if you just like are like, okay, so anyway, and that immediately, it's like saying you're great, but, and it's all in the but. So anytime that you do that, you just negated everything you said before that. So in making sure that you are transitioning well. And so it's an add-on to the conversation. It's not saying, well, I don't care that we just spent 10 minutes talking about this thing that was really interesting to you. Now let's get to me. It's, hey, additionally, this is really cool. Speaking of, so I'm calling, and this is really exciting, or, whatever it is that you're talking about, but make sure it's in addition to the conversation and not a detractor of, saying, hey, we've been focused on you, so now let's flip it back to me. Again, that is a take, and what you want to do is continue the deposit, but that is confidence. And that is exactly what Nick said. So I was just agreeing.
Marcus, how would you handle this? Sometimes I'll say, to transition, I'm curious your take. What would you like to accomplish from this call? What would you like to get out of this conversation? That's one of the ways that I do it, but I'd love to hear some, what you think about that, and some better ones that I know you have. No,
I mean,
got him. Pull back.
I personally love that because it's so simple, right? Especially it depends on really how warm the prospect is as well, right? I think it's a really powerful one. So if you know they already have some pains, and if you want to get right into it, it might be as simple as, hey, listen, so first off, again, thanks for your time. And just so we get right into it, just so I have a really good understanding. When you really think about it, what would you say is your number one challenge you're running into right now? Now, obviously, you have to have some context to it, right? Then it's like, oh, okay. And noticing how I slowed it down, lowered my tonality, and made it very thoughtful because I want a thoughtful response back, right? So there's many different ways, depending on how warm the prospect is and what level, what stage you're in. But the most important piece is, are you reading the prospect and guiding them accordingly? And that takes confidence. And confidence built off repetition and mastery and doing the things enough times so you know how to read the prospect to keep it going. Because if you feel like there's like a lull in the conversation, that's okay. But can you carry the lull back up and keep it flowing and keep it moving? So that way the conversation is going to be of value to them. If they don't see value in the conversation, they're going to end the conversation, especially if you're selling into enterprise opportunities. They're just not going to want to waste their time anymore.
Fantastic. Also, just real quick, we don't have time. I know we're not going to have time to go into like talk tempo and pace and pausing, but that's like my wheelhouse. That's one of the things I do. So you're welcome to follow on either Instagram or TikTok at sales pitching. That's a lot of what I talk there is tempo and pace and really punching words. So
I love that. And are y'all open to some sort of rapid fire questions here that we've got in the chat before we wrap?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, give me your best response to I'm not interested.
Cool. What do you mean?
What?
What do you mean? That's it.
What do you mean you're not interested?
Like, think about it. Like, if you just cold call them, you haven't pitched a single thing, hopefully. Right? If you haven't pitched a single thing, like, what are they not interested in? You have no idea. You literally have no idea. Like, what if you literally called them to give them $10 million tax-free? You don't know. So just wait. I don't like to create objections in my mind that don't exist. Right? So
that's good. Mine's similar. It's what's not interesting, or what are you interested in? Or what are you interested in hearing about? So, but I think it's true. It depends also on when they say that, because if you have just gone through your pitch, then it's like, okay, well, which part?
Good point. All of it. You probably did a terrible job of discovery then, just so you know. This.
That's good.
Do y'all have some quick tips for standing out in email written format to a prospect?
Video.
Forget written, just go with the video.
If you can use video in your cadence, right? You cannot send all video emails. Actually, you know what? Jason Bay, J-Bay over at Blissful Prospecting has tons of stuff on his website. And I believe there's a webinar there about how to integrate video into part of your prospecting cadence. I would absolutely, you need to be following J-Bay anyway, Jason Bay. Any chance I get to use video in any way, shape, or form, it just makes it, once people know you. Actually, you know what? Zoe Hartsfield, I forget the name of the company. Where's she now? Tara, what's the company called? Speckett?
Zoe Speckett.
Yeah. So last year she did an Ask Me Anything at Aspireship. And one of the things she did was for a meeting hold. And all it was a quick 15-second video. Hey, I'm really excited to talk to you Tuesday at 9 a.m. If you have any questions in advance, just go ahead and reply. One of my clients last year, I brought that in. Their hold rate on meetings was so low, it was under 50%. We got it to almost 90% in 2 weeks with a quick, just little reminder video email, because it's a lot harder to no-show on someone once they've actually sent you that video.
It humanized it, right? It really humanized it. So in my personal opinion, everyone's got different philosophies, but if you're going to start a cadence, I always prefer a video to start with. Right? If you can do a video email to start with, because you can cut through the noise much faster and gain trust much faster versus like sending like 3 different emails. It's like you hit the video first, like, oh, wow, this is made for me. It's like, especially if the subject line is like, Tara made this for you, smiley face. What?
Yes. Yep.
And then your email is like, hey, Tara, made this for you. Check below, smiley face. and there's just a GIF of me moving around like this and their name, and they're like, and they're like, well, I'm gonna click on this video now because there's not enough of anything in there for me to say no to it yet. And this guy looks like a clown. I like clowns, kind of. Let's see what happens. Boom.
So 2 things about that too, just to get a higher open rate. I always put how many seconds are in the video. Hey, I just sent you this 28-second video, so that I'm willing to commit to 28 seconds, no problem. And the other thing is, don't tell them what's in the video.
Yeah.
A lot of people, but a lot of people send me videos and they're
more.
telling me what's in it in advance. So
No. So just real quick, because as much as I'm a huge fan of video and we've always got to do it to those points, there's still going to be an element of copy. You still got to have some kind of, unless you're just DMing them, but it's always got to have curiosity. So I always say when it comes to writing emails and when it comes to sending any kind of emails, you're going to have your grab attention, but then you've got to keep attention. So this is relevant for if you're sending a video within that email, or just an email body. So I always say use curiosity in the subject line. Remember the preview text. Don't ever forget that, because if it's going to be a really great subject line, but then it's all automation, you're done. So make sure that your preview text extends curiosity. Always ask insightful questions. Make sure everything is a 100% them centric. Do not start talking about you and your company. Don't start talking about what you need. Keep it short and simple to the point, but then making sure that you're using that conversation. You're answering extremely fast. Why should you care? Immediately. Everything should answer the question. You should care. You should care. You should care. And then be relevant. And then ask yourself, honestly, would you answer? Would you watch? So if you are, and that's why I love Nick's point, you should only have one CTA. So if you're sending a video email, you're not going to be asking them for 5 other things. Your only CTA in that is watch the video. And that's to use all the ways that Marcus and Nick just said to capture curiosity, because the most people want, no matter if it's an email or a video, is to close that loop of curiosity. It's going to drive them crazy until they've closed the loop and know what the heck you're talking about.
if you're emailing, sorry, real quick, if you're emailing to Will Allred, I'm dropping his LinkedIn in the chat. Is a must from Lavender. Try lavender.com. They have millions of emails sent out. It's like $19 a month. If you're emailing and your company won't pay for it because it is the data science. I mean, just follow Will Allred. He's on all the social media, but follow him on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love that. He's does with Christina Finseth some email breakdowns in the Sales Hacker newsletter each week, and I love those, seeing like real examples of emails and how he rewrites them. So definitely Will is a good follow, and absolutely connect with Tara, Nick, Marcus, so that we can keep this conversation going.
I don't want this to end. I'm not ready for this.
So much fun. I need to take a nap now because I told you I'm an ambivert. I have to rest for at least 3 days now. So thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
This has been so much fun. And if you're wondering, yes, it is recorded. So there was a lot of good nuggets in there. I can't wait to pull out my favorites. My notes look crazy, but we're going to be sending out the recording so you can go back and listen. And I really appreciate all of you who've attended, and especially to Marcus, Tara, Nick for sharing your wisdom and your time today. This has been awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Love you all. Thank you all.
See you later. Bye.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you all.
I'm going to take a nap now. See y'all.
I call Tom.